Boobs and More was the title of a recent review that we got at Heart and Soil for our recently released Her Package. This is our newest supplement for ladies, and this review is amazing. I want to read this to you guys. These are amazing. I thought my boobs were done for having a baby. They have grown since taking these. My libido is slowly but surely rising up from the depths of its grave. My overall mood is happy and steady. The real test was how they affected my period. It's like night and day. My mood is solid. My bleeding is normal. I'm able to function like I'm actually alive. And I've also noticed my joints aren't aching and my complexion has improved, worth every penny. So how cool is that for a review for Her Package, which has uterus, ovaries, fallopian tubes, kidney, and liver. It's our women's supplement. We also recently released Whole Package, which is our men's supplement, which has testicle, my newest favorite organ. I take Whole Package daily, and blood and liver. And so check these two out in our store. You can go to heartandsoil.co. We are all about helping you reclaim your birthright to radical health. As you guys all know, I think organs are very uniquely beneficial for humans, and very few of us are able to get them in their fresh form. So we want to make it easy for you with grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively raised organs, conveniently encapsulated into a gelatin capsule. These are all from New Zealand. They're the highest quality I could source, and they are obviously all free of any additives, preservatives, GMO, anything. It's all the best you can get, and I'm happily to provide it to you, your family, and I recommend it and give it to my family, my sister, my niece, my nephew, my mom, and my dad. So check us out, heartandsoil.co. Reclaim your birthright to radical health. My guest on today's podcast is none other than the infamous, for good reason, knees over toes guy. It's the best name ever, Ben Patrick. Super amazing human. I love iconoclasts. I love people who are thinking outside of the box. I love people who are challenging the notions of what is commonly accepted practice, because forever, as Ben says, you were told to avoid putting your knees over your toes, except we know that that's a hugely important thing to do if you want strong knee ligaments and whatever. So in this podcast, we talk about how to bulletproof your knees, how to bulletproof your ankles, and how to get pretty damn world-class superhuman strength and do all kinds of stuff. My goal is still to dunk as a 5'9.5" man. Keep you posted on that, but I do like to jump, I like to surf, and I like to be springy and fast, even though I'm quite a slow sprinter. So Ben's activities, Ben's movements can help me with this, and I love his unorthodox style. I think you guys will really enjoy this one and get a lot out of it, whether you're a man, a woman, whether you're over 50, under 50, over 70, or college athlete or high school athlete, really looking to avoid long-term injury. This is an amazing, super valuable podcast. If you like my podcast in general, if you like fundamental health with me, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. It's the one space that I think moves the needle the most, but you can leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast, and that will help us reach more people, which is what it's all about. As a thank you to everyone who leaves a review on Apple Podcasts, I'm giving away one free copy of my book that is signed every month to someone that leaves a review there. So without further ado, on to this amazing podcast with my brother, Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy. Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy, legend. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Super honored to be here. I've known about you for so long, so I was freaking stoked, and a bunch of my friends are massive fans, so they've all been waiting for this one.
Well, like I was telling you before we started recording, my whole crew at Heart and Soil in Austin are massive fans of yours, and they were so stoked when you guys sent me a slant board, like a custom Carnivore MD slant board. And we're going to talk about all that stuff today, but they are going to be so geeked about this podcast. So the admiration is mutual, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Amazing.
So as I was preparing for this, I was watching a bunch of your videos, and I was really impressed, Ben, with like your history knowledge of athletics. And this is something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but the way that you have studied athletes and their progressions and looked for outlier athletes who were short but could jump, really athletes of any size that could jump bigger than they should be able to, or athletes that recovered. Like, this was really fascinating to me to hear you talk about these athletes, and I thought it was such a really cool case study. So I thought maybe you could tell us the story of, I think Jonathan Edwards is the one that I want to start with. He's the triple jumper, right? Who won an Olympic gold medal. So this is I love this. So maybe we can start with that.
I mean, what I look for, I think in particular over the years, at first I would look for different outliers. I wasn't really sure what. Now I particularly look for longevity outliers, right? So like we all grew up and we know what it's like. Like we're all starting out with a certain amount of athleticism, you know? So you see athletes who are 18, 20 years old and they're already jumping as high as they ever do in their career. But then when you find someone who's winning a gold medal at age 34 in their 4th Olympics, like Jonathan Edwards with gray hair on his head, in a super elastic sport, which is the triple jump, it's like, now wait a second. He had to have done something, not just been born like that. So it's his 4th Olympic cycle. He was, damn near last place the first couple Olympic cycles. A sport like triple jump, like that should pretty much be it. In his 3rd Olympics, I think got 2nd. But then anyways, finally in his 4th Olympics at age 34, won a gold medal. Now, he retired right there. Who's to say he couldn't have gone farther at 38? I'm just saying, like, that's pretty wild that he was just making so much progress as he aged. And he did some unorthodox things compared to other people. And even going back, his own country at first wouldn't sponsor him because their orthopedic specialist said it was physically impossible for him to be a competitive triple jumper. Now, if the top specialists in the country tell you based on your bones, muscles, tendons, you can't be a competitive triple jumper, most of us would be inclined to believe that. And his world motherfucking record still stands, from the 1990s. And that's a sport where you can't get away with steroids because the certain sports, steroids can definitely help. And someone would probably argue me and say that steroids could help in triple jump. But what's different is the elastic component. So it's kind of like, maybe the extra power, but then you wouldn't be able to handle that power on the 2nd or 3rd jump. So if you look like, it's not a sport where the drugs can just get better and you can win, But that's just one case, and that's a sport where it's horizontal. He doesn't have to stop. So most of us with knee pain, it's the stopping, the landing, the deceleration that hurts our knees. So then I found crazy outliers of people who were able to train themselves and be still athletic in their 70s, 80s with super healthy knees. That's, where you find serious gold for the knees.
What did he do differently, Ben? So, I mean, it's a crazy story, and I love that you highlighted this idea that that steroids aren't really going to help you in that sport, that it is horizontal, that there are 3 jumps. If people haven't seen the triple jump, it's something that I've not seen much of before. It's like it's like they sprint and they do 1 jump, 2 jumps on 1 foot. They're like landing on 1 foot, and then they do a 3rd jump like a long jump. So it's like 1, 2, 3. Whoever dreamt this up was clearly high or stoned or something. I don't know how this got to be an Olympic sport, but it's beautiful in the way that it challenges the athleticism in a unique way, right? Like, what is somebody thinking? Like, the long jump makes sense to me. You run, how far can you jump? You got to jump over a flaming pot of lava like you did when you were a kid. Long jump. But 3 jumps, that's crazy. And so, interesting that steroids won't help. But, what was he doing that was so different? Let's just go straight for the jugular right at the outset.
Yeah, and in his case, that ability he had the fastest approach into the start of the jump. So no one's been able to approach it as fast as he approached it. The guy won gold at 34. So he clearly was doing things different than other people. There's old diagrams and stuff. So there are certain exercises that for example, one for behind his knee, because if you just jump straight up and down, you don't really have to pull the ground beneath you, And if you just do, traditional weightlifting, you could get very strong, but now to turn that into horizontal force, your leg has to, it has to cycle around. So it looks like there's evidence that for 20 straight years, he continually worked this body weight hamstring curl exercise, which there's hamstring curl machines everywhere, but there's not even equipment set up for body weight hamstring curls. If someone goes on YouTube and searches how to do a Nordic hamstring curl, my video will come up first on YouTube because I've definitely coached more people on that exercise. But as a guy who naturally had my school records in high school for how slow I was, the slowest guy on the team, the lowest vertical jump, I had to figure out, how do you manufacture this? How do you manufacture that? So even once I figured out how to manufacture vertical jump and I could go up and dunk, I still was slower compared to my vertical force. So I had to figure out, well, who are the greatest outliers for speed? Now, Jonathan Edwards is just one case. In hockey, there's a really good case. I don't know if you remember a guy named Marty St. Louis, undrafted, ended up getting cut out of the NHL. So he went from undrafted. By age 35, he was leading the league in scoring, and at his gym, there's 25 professional hockey players, and his trainer is quoted as saying that Marty was the only guy who could do this exact bodyweight hamstring drill. At 35, still one of the fastest guys in the league, leading the league in scoring. There's another serious longevity outlier. And the last one I'll mention is a guy named Adam Archuleta, who was a football player, and he was like laughed at the idea that he could even get a college scholarship. So his wasn't so much longevity, it was that he went from 16 years old, unbelievably slow. His trainer said he had no hamstrings. 2.5 years later, could do this Nordic hamstring curl exercise. By the end of college, was a first-round draft pick, banking many millions of dollars that would not have existed without that exercise. It just wouldn't have existed. He wouldn't have been fast enough. Now, it's only one piece of the puzzle, but those are three unique cases of people who had to change their speed from what it was naturally. So that's just on speed, but that's why I don't look so much for studies which can be biased or haven't even. No study has done actual long-term progression of the Nordic hamstring curl. There is no study on long-term measurable address of that exercise the way that I do in my system. And that's just one exercise. So just about all the exercise I do, there is no study to tell us that we should do it. But you're always going to find longevity, outliers and things like that guide the way and pave the way.
There are so many parallels. And we were kind of talking about this before the podcast. There's a lot of parallels between the work that we do, which I think was one of the reasons that I was so interested in what you're doing, because I love the outliers. I love the iconoclasts. I love the people who are looking at a paradigm that is well established, deeply ensconced, and saying, that's bullshit. Like, there's something missing here.
No knees over toes.
And then kind of trying to connect the dots. Because
no knees over toes. When I started Knees Over Toes Guy, Google said, don't let your knees over your toes. 3 years later, Google says, actually, your knees can and should. It's a natural part. So, and that's not just me. It's a bunch of other people. But the point is, what Google says is reality. Reality and truth are not necessarily the same thing. So what Google says, that is reality. You Google it to find out what you think, is the truth. And what everyone agrees on, that's the reality. It doesn't mean it's true. So that's just a simple example. If knees over toes can be, in a 3-year span, go from thought of as don't do it to now thought of as, well, wait a second, you can't even go down steps. You can't squat or kneel down to play with your kids. In fact, the less able you are with your knees over your toes, statistically, the more likely you are to die of falling, unable to even walk on your own. So even as it goes, into longevity, tests of knees over toes predict the longevity of your knees. It's just it's an ability. So sorry to completely cut you off on that one, but I just want to point out that we actually can make a difference. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. The strategy might have to be extreme to actually get through to people. You know what I mean? We might have to change. I used to be hardcore about it, and now I figured out that actually I have to work like within what people can handle, and not. It's very hard not to offend certain people, but I found that the closer I can get to making something so true that I don't have to criticize anyone, you know what I mean, and just present my truth, that's actually what has gotten through the most.
It's interesting, if you Google, and I posted about this on Instagram the other day, if you Google the best sources of iron in food, you'll come up with a bunch of things like lentils and tofu and all these garbage foods that don't have heme iron. There's no iron in a porphyrin ring, that aren't really that bioavailable. And then if you dig a little deeper and you look at like the USDA database and you look at actual studies of iron absorption, what you find is very clearly it's animal foods like oysters or mussels or red meat or liver or spleen. Like, these are the best sources of iron. So I love what you said there. Like, Google is reality, but reality is not always truth.
Your post is what I was thinking of when I said that.
That is very true. And I love...
I was thinking of the exact...
That's amazing.
I do my homework too. I've been studying your stuff for the last month.
That's amazing. And we're going to talk about it because I was so impressed. Later in the podcast, I want to talk about your experiences with eating this way. But when I was listening to your stuff, those examples, Marty St. Louis, Jonathan Edwards, I think, and Adam Archuleta, I was like, that is really cool. Yeah. And it all came down to the Nordic curl. So I was like, okay, I get it. The Nordic curl is super important. And I probably should have framed the podcast like this in the beginning for people. This is not just for people who want to be world-class athletes, though I think I'm going to steal the title of one of your YouTube videos for this podcast and title it like, How to Be a World-Class Athlete. Yeah. But that's, world-class is relative. Like, I hope my mom and my dad listen to this episode because, there might be a few world-class athletes listening to this. Maybe my friend George St. Pierre will listen. Yeah. Maybe we'll get Chris Weidman, who's also into your stuff, because I saw him post about that, and I sent him a message listening and talking about this. But a lot of people that are listening are just like me, and maybe I'm very slow. My sprint is abysmal, but I love it. I'm 5'9.5". Maybe I could dunk at some point in my life. I'm curious. I know there are people shorter than me who have dunked, but my goals are to sprint faster, to have longevity in my knees, to be able to surf, and really to get to be the best version of myself that I could be. And so
we could all have world-class
That's why I think
longevity,
all this is really cool.
And that's what's freaking cool.
Yes.
You could have been the slowest guy in high school,
yes,
and you could be able to run in your 70s when no one else in your class could. Now, the way you do that people will be really happy to find out, which I really didn't know until these years have rolled on, is that you actually don't need any equipment at all to start. You don't even have to do anything hard. The trick is to rebuild your strength training from the ground up, meaning actually start strength training your feet, ankles, shin muscles, calf muscles when your knees are over your toes. So it's actually freaking cool that any of us, I've had wins in the last week from 89, 91, and 93-year-olds just rebuilding from the ground up. So that's actually the trick that sets you up then for what do you want to do? Do you want to have a world-class kick or a world-class sprint or a world-class jump? But it's all the way that everybody would start would actually be by literally being able to lift your body, by gravity, better from the ground up, toes, ankles, shins. So it's pretty freaking cool that it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to do stuff that hurts or that's hard, and literally anyone who can walk could actually start doing it. So basically what I hear you saying is that improving your vertical jump and improving the amount of force that you can generate to move yourself horizontally across the ground is going to benefit every single human on the planet. And it doesn't matter whether you want to surf, whether you want to sprint, whether you want to triple jump, whether you want to long jump, whether you want to do MMA, or whether you want to ride a bicycle. I think these are fundamental movements that could make all of us better and have more longevity with those activities, which makes life worth living. Exactly. Longevity is my new king. That's my goal. So I went into my 20s. I had never grabbed the rim for a 10-foot basketball rim. Reached my 20s, had never grabbed the rim. Now I'm 30, and I'm dunking every which way. And my new goal is that, okay, my kid is 10 months old. He's going to have the genetics to not be able to dunk. So I'm going to have to train him to be able to dunk and dunk with him. How good do you think that moment is going to be when I'm 47 years old and he's 17 or whatever, and we go to the court and do a dunk session together? That's my new... You see, I feel like that actually is more valuable than being able to win some competition, because what about the rest of your life, And we're all going to... I don't believe that someone has to be happy or unhappy based on their success in some specific competition, but we all could improve our longevity. Now, what you were saying there about these abilities, it's really a matter of just scaling it to a level that you're stimulating it. Kind of maybe if you had a really good coach that's yeah, I can get anyone to do push-ups. You know what I mean? That's the mindset I took with okay, I can get anyone to have stronger feet, ankles, and knees. So that's kind of what I meant by it's there are abilities that we know that we want, but we don't necessarily know how to get there. And I put all this stuff in free videos, and then I make it cheap if people want to be coached. But to me, that's the new king, is longevity. Because if I figure out a route to be dunking when I'm 47, how easy do you think it's going to be to make my kid dunk? You see what I mean? So when you figure out how to make someone have freakish longevity, you actually just figured out how to make an elite athlete by bulletproofing them at the same time. Just making someone who can run faster or jump high but could get hurt at any given instant or is in chronic pain, the gains don't go very far. Oh, I improved my jump a little bit this summer. Where are you the next summer? You know what I mean? So it's the same things that give you freakish longevity would allow a 12, 13, 14-year-old to be the only kid on his team probably not icing his knees. So I see the same thing. Wow, every girl on my volleyball team has to ice their knees after practice, and my knees don't hurt because I do these exercises, anyways, there's a bit of a rant there, but just that's how I look at longevity. You know what I mean? I don't look at longevity as something different. I look at that more as like truth. If you figure out how to have freakish longevity, you just figured out how to help like anybody.
I love it. There's a quote in one of your videos. I mean, and I'll repeat it, but it's yours. And you said, the closer we get to the truth, the simpler it gets. And I was like, man, I like this guy. He's like amazing athlete, philosopher, like really wants to help people. I thought that was so cool, Ben.
That's how I base my decisions. That's how I know if I'm getting like closer to being on the money with something or not. If now I need a $5,000 machine to accomplish a certain result, I'm probably actually going in the wrong direction. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that is true. That's just like a philosophy to operate on. You know what I mean? So I just find that when something becomes simpler, I know I'm like, that seems to get more results and go more in the right direction. I kind of apply that for life. Like that was one of the things, that was one of the things I just decided to go on that principle, and it worked out really freaking well.
And I think it applies to so many things. It's almost like an Occam's razor type of overarching philosophy. You see the same thing in diet. Like it doesn't have to be complicated, and then it can be, it should be very easy. I always joke about this with my friends, and they always kind of ask me. And I was skating with a friend here in Costa Rica last night, or the last couple of nights, and he always says, "How are we the only species on the planet that doesn't know what it's supposed to eat?" And this is a conversation for a different podcast, but it's the same thing. Like, how are we the only species on the planet that hasn't figured out how to move? And so there is truth that we're looking for, and I think that there's a lot of simplicity that's wrapped into that. So I want to talk about how you address every joint, how you address the ankles and the knees and the hips. But since we started talking about the Nordic curl, let's just talk about that one, and then we can circle back to the ankles and the knees and the hip flexors. Because, so let's talk about what a Nordic curl is, how people can create a Nordic bench, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. Because that seemed like, when I was watching your stuff, I was like, that's the thing I want to do more
That's
of,
cool.
in addition to the other stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, if we break down its relative importance, well, if you're 12 years old and you want to be a professional athlete, then next Christmas, get an actual Nordic bench, which you can like get online, which costs about $500. Skip your video game that Christmas, your $500 controller system or whatever. Get a Nordic bench and be like the best kid of anyone you know. It's literally push-ups, but for your hamstrings, which pull the ground when you run, and it reduces pressure on the ACL. Like your ACL attaches from the back of your thigh to the front of the shin bone. So it's essentially, the stronger you are at lowering down on a Nordic, well, every ounce stronger you are at that is an ounce more protected that your ACL is. Life is fucking hard. Sports are freaking hard. The idea that life should be walking on clouds with no issues and no problems, that's not what we're going for. We're just going for a measurable increase of what kind of speed, jumping, and knee protection you could have. So a Nordic hamstring curl is a chin-up or a push-up. It's a bodyweight exercise for the back of your knee, to flex your knee, which is what you rely on to go horizontally. Now, I came to that because I was trying to jump high, but then, like, I could do a basketball dunk. You know how you can, like, run up and jump off 2 feet or run up and jump off 1 foot? So if you imagine, like, Michael Jordan jumping from the foul line, he's going off 1 foot. And so even once I could jump up and dunk off 2 legs, if I tried to do a running jump off 1 leg, I was like nowhere near it. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, why can I jump off 2 feet but not 1 foot? So there are some fundamental differences there. One of them being that now you have to keep pulling the ground beneath you. So devoting myself to that, I train it once a week. You could, at the absolute lowest, put a bunch of padding down for your knees in your house right now, wear the grippiest shoes that you have, and put your feet against a wall. And no, you wouldn't be able to do the full thing because there's not enough to hold your heels down, but you would actually be able to feel those hamstrings working. You'd push back up with your hands, and you'd fight down a little bit. That would actually be a really gentle way to start working on it. Or for an elderly person, getting a bunch of padding for your knees, getting your feet against the wall, and leaning forward literally like an inch, and just feeling those hamstrings turn on. So that would be an example of how to get into it. Then you could have a partner hold your heels down. They even make... My buddy came out with a strap. His name's Mr. Infinity. You want to talk about longevity. He's 43. I trained with him in person, and I watched him go from his late 30s, unable to dunk, to now 43, and he can run and jump and dunk off either leg, which is very rare for a basketball player who's not exceptionally tall. 43 years old. He literally trained himself to get more bulletproof and more athletic in his 40s. And he came out with this strap. So if you went into to any weight bench, you could go on the weight bench and turn it into a Nordic. And as I said, then there's an actual Nordic bench. And anyone who has like a lot of people at home, they have like a squat rack. So you can turn a squat rack, like quite literally the video that's being edited right now goes over, because I make videos every day and I make it and then my editor edits it up for YouTube. Nothing fancy, just like edits it up with, to really help guide the learning. That's everything I'm talking about is what he's editing right now. It happens to be on describing like from literally someone sitting at home with no equipment, how would you start all the way to the end. So yeah, it's the same concept as push-ups or chin-ups. It's body weight strength. It's pound-for-pound strength. But in your hamstring, specifically where it attaches behind your knee. So that's that exercise. And there's probably like 8 gems like that anyone can kind of take, their knees, speed, jumping, longevity, that you can kind of take it into your own hands. But that would represent one actually that's like further up the chain. Meaning usually I don't start people with that. Usually I start with the ankles and with actually opening up the flexibility and strength like around those patellar tendons and quad tendon. So like usually we start really building from the ground up before we start getting into those horizontal muscles. Like we kind of build up the braking muscles before we start working the acceleration muscles, if that makes sense.
It totally does. So that's a great segue. Like, where would you start somebody? With a split squat well, before we go into that, I just want to make sure people understand, because this is the problem with a podcast, is that we can try and put a picture in here of a Nordic curl for YouTube, but you guys listening on iTunes, I'm just going to have to describe it. So you're basically, if you picture a regular bench, like you might do a bench press on, you are kneeling on the bench,
yep.
and you have a strap on your ankle. So you are facing the bench. It's the opposite direction.
Yep.
It's like you're on your belly on the bench instead of on your back on the
yep.
bench, but you're on your knees vertically, and then you are strapping your ankles to the bench or using a Nordic bench,
yep.
which actually has
a
pad for your
yep.
ankles, and then you are lowering, or a partner holding, and you are lowering yourself with your belly facing the bench to the bench, and then the goal is to then be able to use your hamstrings, which are behind your legs, between your knees and your butt, to pull yourself back up off the bench the whole time your stomach is facing the bench. So it's like nothing many people have ever seen, and that's the Nordic that we're talking about. And we'll link to some videos of Ben's that show how to do that. But that's a really cool one.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about that, or maybe we can move on to where you would start?
Yeah, it should be a common fundamental thing. You should walk into every 24-hour fitness that has $3,000 to $5,000 machines that actually don't allow you to just get as strong as a simple Nordic hamstring. Which, if you think that only Rogue and like one other company are even making these, and it's like $500, I mean, if more companies were making them, we're talking about probably like a $250, bench that is just a bench to work, behind your knees. So by starting someone young on that, it's like, my God, how many ACL injuries could you prevent in the first place? You know what I mean? My mom is 67 and she has one of those benches in her living room. So it's like how far do you want to take that? 67 and my mom runs like someone half her age, So it's the physics of protecting your ACL and of creating, horizontal ability. But it's not, there's nothing flashy about it. There's nothing revolutionary about it. That's kind of what I mean by like the closer you get to the truth, the simpler it gets. So I used to own a gym and I had multiple different $3,000 to $5,000 hamstring tools. Only when we would test over and over and over, the people who just got good at Nordics ended up actually way stronger on the machines than the people doing the machines and got way better results. So it's like, that's an example. The closer you get to the truth, simpler it gets. And if you even have a squat rack in your garage, that is literally all you need. Squat rack and padding. There's a way you just set up the bar plates, and you can literally get like world-class hamstrings for your age or sport or gender or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you're 60 and you could lower down and do one of these, yeah, you're freaking world-class. You know what I mean? So some people have a problem with me using that word, but I think the idea that anyone could be world-class, I live and breathe that. I was the shittiest athlete, and now I am world-class at many things. So I think world class is something we all, should it's like okay, it's okay for us to achieve that. But that's a perfect example. Closer you get to the truth, simpler it gets. And even simpler than that is like, where do you start for taking control of your knee? Like, where does anyone just start? You start with a freaking wall, and that's it, just a wall. And you put your butt against the wall, and you reach your legs out, and you flex your ankle muscles up, and you do 25 reps. And by the end of that 25 reps, you realize, holy crap, I have muscles coming from the ground up that I've never taken to failure in my entire life. And then I wonder why I have knee pain when I'm not training the muscle that's right under the patellar tendon, why my ankles are, too immobile, even though I never actually train the front of the ankle. So you see what I mean? Like, it actually is like so simple that it's crazy. And I would dump out all the expensive stuff, and it would actually force someone to create way different longevity. So it's kind of interesting. But if you look at the Nordic as something that would allow someone to get freakish speed compared to their genetics, but if we go even further than that and realize that the starting point requires literally nothing but your body and a wall, now you see what I mean. The closer we get to the truth, it gets really simple.
So would that be the first thing you would start with? So if you were going to start at the ankles, and this is that anterior tib muscle.
Yep.
And that exercise is amazing. I've been doing it here in Costa Rica the last few days, and you guys actually sent me a tib bar to play with, and it feels really cool. But I love that you figured this out, that you can really just put your butt against a wall. And again, we'll link in the show notes at this point in the video to a video of you doing this.
I have a full...
you can just put your butt against the wall, back against the wall.
Yeah, that one's so unorthodox, and it's step one of my system. So the actual tutorial that I use in my system is on my YouTube for that exercise. If you search knees over toes guy tibialis raise, you'll see that exercise. And that's actually the place to start, not with the tibialis bar. The place to start is with your body, because it's way freaking harder than you realize, and you monitor the difficulty. Anyways, the tutorial will take it from there. The tibialis bar is then as you get more advanced and you want some degree of exact measurable load, right? The strongest bench pressers in the world, they didn't get there off doing band drills. Maybe they added some band drills, but they know how much weight they're lifting. So now if you want to make like a world-class athlete, you progress from the wall then to this bar that you know exactly how much you're lifting, and you measurably increase your strength the same proven ways that anyone would increase their strength. And what's interesting about it is for elderly, you could potentially start with someone who actually couldn't even walk. You probably have to have the ability to walk to do the tibialis raise against the wall. If you've lost the ability to walk, but you do have foot motion, you can use this bar because you could start with 1 pound. So when it comes to equipment, that is actually more for like people who are trying to go, to the fullest of their athletic ability, or people who can't even do the body weight version. So equipment actually is not even where you start, because equipment could kind of rob you of so much of the gains of just mastering your own body weight. Anyways.
No, it's amazing. So we could start with the anterior tib. What else would you do in the ankle if we're building from the ground up?
So it goes from
Take us through a progression.
Yeah, so if you imagine when we're walking, every time we're walking, boom, the heel hits the ground, and then that force comes up through the ankle into the anterior tib. People in sports who have knee pain, it's all the stopping and boom. So that's your first line of defense. You go directly from the anterior tib, which takes no equipment, and it's best to start with no equipment, and then you work your way into the big toe and into the soleus. The soleus is the lower, deeper calf muscle. It has the strongest pull of any muscle in the human body, pound for pound. And then the big toe, you could look at like 100 bodybuilders and look at their entire weight program, and they might not have an exercise that really loads through the big toe. The stiffer that big toe gets, now the less force we're able to handle, the more we lose strength. Our feet are meant to be strong. I think the perfect analogy, which I'm filming right after we get done with this, is imagine jumping like off a house and having to land. I think landing is the simplest way to understand longevity. Go to the playground and I see kids landing from 2-3 times their height, boom, and they're hitting the ground and springing back up. But it starts right from their big toe and ankle. It's very mobile and it can handle all this force. But now as we get older, the idea of landing from greater and greater heights becomes, as we age, I feel like how well you could land from something is like the number one predictor of longevity. So it starts with your feet. Like, you can't cheat the fact that your feet are that first thing. Now that's a landing. Now imagine running or hiking or, you know, any of these things that maybe we lose the ability to do as we age. So it starts right there. The more mobile and strong your big toe, ankle, lower calf muscles, that just sets you up for success with all the rest, with your knees, your hips, everything. Because the weaker all that is, now more undue force is coming up. But if we do modern exercise, we are not strength training our big toes, you know, tibialis, lower calf muscles. Most people have been their whole lives without actually strength training those muscles. So we end up deviating from how our body's supposed to be. Our body is supposed to be built from the ground up and it's proportioned a certain way. So if modern training neglects certain things, we get out of proportion, and that's where we see all these problems coming in.
Are you going to do a video where you jump off your house?
I was thinking.
What are you going to jump off?
I was thinking about it this morning, but and then putting it just in slow motion so people can see like where, you know what I mean? Like the force starts like boom, foot, ankle, shin, you know what I mean? And then it comes up to the knee. You know, so it's like we want bulletproof knees, but we need to be getting world-class ankles and feet as like that's how the progression goes. And as that stuff opens up, now it gets like really easy to train your knees and really easy to have healthy knees and then really easy to have amazing hips. So that's just like, that's the flow. So in a single session, we train all the way up to the hips, but we go in that order.
So you're going to I can't wait to see this video. I imagine you're going to jump off your house and then on the next episode of Rogan's going to be like, hey, Jamie, pull up that clip of knee over toes guy jumping off his house. And they're going to watch you jump off your house in slow motion, and Joe's going to go, oh! And everybody's going to be like cringing. Because you have a video right now on your YouTube where you jump off like a ladder or some high platform. I mean, it looked like it actually made me cringe a little. I was like, whoa. I mean, you jumped off this thing, hit the ground, and then jumped back. And so I'm imagining Joe seeing you jumping off your house and going, oh my God, this is going to be a good one, Ben. I'm better you than me, my friend.
I love it. Well, but anyways, that's exactly how we work. We work from, like, quite literally from the ground up in a strength training flow. So my base system is 8 exercises that you start from the ankle and foot, and you go through these 8 exercises without any equipment, because the equipment could really actually rob us or deviate from the fullest game. Then you progress to using strategic equipment just to get a little bit more like measurement. So now you can add weights and things like that. But I don't think that's necessary. I do think that this ground up, body weight concept, like it's literally necessary, to handle life. And we either have it to some degree or we can rehabilitate it to some degree.
So how do you train the big toe? Like we talked about anterior tib a little bit, but we didn't really talk like how would you target big toe and soleus from there?
Super simply, when it comes to the big toe, you have to be getting into calf raises where you're actually loading through the big toe, like rather than just going up and down. And when it comes into the soleus, that lower, deeper calf muscle, as long as you're restricting your knee over toe, you can't really get in and load the soleus. So with your knees over your toes and then doing calf raises from that position, you shift the load from the upper calf into the lower calf. So most of us have like a major imbalance where even if we've trained our calves, we haven't trained, the lower calf area. So you can see that just by going through what I described, training the front of the ankle and the big toe range and strength, and then getting the knees over toes into a calf raise, before you know it, your knees are over your toes and you're strong and pain-free. So you're quite literally bridging yourself to the ability to have your knees over your toes. So it flows just like that, right up to then get into actually training the legs.
So there's a video you have on your YouTube channel, which is like how to get bulletproof Achilles. I think it's Achilles. It might have been ACLs, but I think it was a bulletproof Achilles. And you're facing a wall, and you sort of like put your knees over your toes, and then you do a calf raise in that position. Is that what you're describing?
Yep, that's the third exercise. I just put that out like last week. I try to keep my YouTube, I don't even have the ads turned on. So I'm not a YouTuber. I don't make a penny off my YouTube. It's free, helpful marketing for my program. So I try to keep enough so that people are like able to see what's on the other side. Like I'm not trying to trick someone into signing up. I want them to study, learn for themselves, and decide like, oh wow, I want to do that program or not. But at least that way, so like anything I'm talking about, you can go see visuals and educational, videos of this stuff. So yeah, that would be one if I just put it last week, how to how to bulletproof your Achilles, and it goes over this third step of these 8 steps where we're getting into the knees over the toes and then actually working that lower calf muscle.
Do you want to talk about the split squat? That one seems to be another one that you really like and that you focus on. I don't know if that's the first one that you focus on, but I thought the split squat tutorial was really good too. And it was, when I've been trying it, it's intense. I feel it.
That one's my all-time favorite exercise. So you're imagining, if you think of a normal lunge, everything's kind of like at 90-degree angles. Now, what I'm talking about is if you imagine starting in like a lunge position, but then going until your front hamstring completely covers your calf muscle. So to get into that position without the back knee touching the floor, you have to have really lengthened hip flexors too. So you immediately get into what's another major human deviation is relating to back pain, and we're always sitting. Why do we have like so much back pain now, and why is that getting so much worse? Well, what seems to be the number one deviation is our hip flexors are shortened. So immediately our back is fucked, like just based on the physics of everything coming down, just gravity through life. If your hip flexors are shortened, your back is fucked. So you could get a strong back and prevent the symptoms, and that would be part of it, having a strong back. But as long as your hip flexors are shortened and pulling you into this hunchback position of whatever degree, then your back is taking more stress than it's supposed to. And when you do a normal lunge or something like that, you don't actually lengthen those hip flexors. So I never was trying to get to like a front splits. I just was trying to bulletproof my body and fix the deviations. But because of that exercise, I mean, I don't even spend time stretching those hip flexors, and I can do a front splits cold anytime. I show it in a lot of videos. I'm in my garage. I can show you one at the end or something like that. But the point is that instead of these 90-degree angles, and here's the back leg, if you lower full range of motion on the front leg, hamstring completely covering the calf, you're now very deep. So that means the back knee, to not touch the floor, that leg has to really be stretching. So we go through regressions to get to that point. But that's like another fundamental human goal, is like the ability to handle full coverage, full knee bend, one side at a time with lengthened hip flexors. Boom. In a single movement, you just solved a bunch of major human deviation, that we stop squatting all the way down and that we start getting shortened hip flexors. So that's why, like, that single movement, like if I could only, quote unquote, only do one exercise, that would be the movement. But I still follow the system. That's the 5th exercise as we come up the chain. So each exercise literally flows to the next exercise, and then the ATG ass to grass split squat is like the 5th and sort of like final key leg exercise, and then it gets into more like hip and core exercises to balance out the last few steps. But like that one exercise alone, yes, it fundamentally handles shortened hip flexors and lack of knee range of motion.
Are hip flexors getting shorter because we're sitting all the time?
That's my guess, is that's a huge part of it. Then probably as we stop sprinting, so like if as life goes, say you have an injury, now you're sitting a ton and you're not sprinting. So like the human body, like the intention was never like, oh yeah, John's gonna go through like 6 months of rehab every few years and like stop sprinting, stop squatting all the way down, stop, you know what I mean? Like all these stops then lead to all kinds of other ramifications. Like you have a knee surgery, with modern training, you're now effed to that degree in like a bunch of different ways, unless you now train all these deviations from what your body's naturally supposed to be like. So, but I don't know all the different factors of why the hip flexors are tight, but I would say sitting would be a big part of that. You know what I mean? Sitting and not sprinting anymore, because when you sprint, that leg flies back. You know what I mean?
I think about so many things through an evolutionary ancestral lens, and I got to visit the Hadza this year, and I did a bunch of podcasts about that, and I was primarily going to see how they were eating and how they were living. But it is fascinating, because I went with my friend Anthony Gustin, who's classically trained as a chiropractor, and he was interested in their movement. Obviously, they don't have any chairs. They have logs, and sometimes they'll squat on a log, but when they're, quote, sitting, their butt is lower than their knees. So they're in like a semi-squat position, and they're either cross-legged or they're squatting. I mean, a lot of people have talked about the benefits of deep squatting. I've done podcasts about deep squatting with my friend Aaron Alexander in the past. And but I love that you're incorporating this idea of sprinting. Like when I was out hunting with the Hadza, we were like walking, sprint. And because the dogs would go after something, they would be like walk. There was no jog.
Yeah.
It was like walk, sprint. And then they would just go crazy and they would sprint. And I was similarly to the way that I was seduced by vegan ideology. I believe that I was seduced by sort of middle speed running ideology, and I was a distance quote unquote runner, a very slow distance runner, and then I was so slow that I decided that the only way that I was going to have any modicum of success was by running insanely long distances, which are probably not meant to be run in the first place, like ultra marathons. So basically you get to the point where you're not running much faster than a walk, or, considering the fact that people can speed walk 6-minute miles, and most of the, there were no ultra marathons that I ran where my times were faster than 6-minute miles. It was interesting. And so I do think that I was sort of fed into that ideology where I stopped sprinting as well, because I was like, I'm slow, I don't sprint, I run long distances. But it's interesting that we're losing that, and so we're losing this hip flexor lengthening.
I think about those exact things.
To get back.
Yeah, I think about those exact kind of things. And it doesn't mean there's not outliers and stuff, but it would seem very natural to walk or sprint. Like that would seem very natural just if you were trying to survive. So, but that's kind of the thing where like my program is not telling you whether you should walk or sprint or jog. So almost all of us have shortened hip flexors. Here's a measurable thing that thousands of people can now do and have really positive results from doing. Maybe you can already do it. Maybe you can't. But in a single movement, you're restoring hip flexor length and that deep squatting that you talked about. So for me, my left knee has a partially artificial kneecap. It has a dead guy's meniscus. It has a quad tendon repair. The other knee had more diagnosed tears, but by that point I was like, screw surgery, I'm going to fix it naturally. So one knee absurdly stiff with scar tissue. The other knee absurdly loose from literally torn shit in the knee. So the idea of full knee bend, I knew at a certain point that was correct, but I couldn't get there off doing it with two legs because my knees were so different. And my hips had gotten really different because, again, when you go through a surgery, you now atrophy certain muscles that are not part of the rehab system. So, like, everything's atrophying. Now you go through rehab, whatever muscles you skip, like the tibialis is usually completely skipped. I mean, factually, the tibialis is skipped in rehab, factually, because even if you do a few dinky drills with a band, they're now loading your quads with weights and measurable load. And as I sent you that tibialis bar, that gives you weights and measurable load. And it wasn't even being made anywhere till last year. It used to be made like 40 years ago. It never caught on. But now last year, my friend was like, what needs to exist that doesn't? Tibialis bar needs to exist. Every physiotherapy place should now start working on what is an average person's tibialis strength. Now, after an ACL surgery, how much does the tibialis strength lessen? Now we need to get the tibialis strength up to that point. So many people have a knee surgery, like an ACL, and then they're like, yeah, my ACL is good now, but I have horrible patellar tendinitis. Yeah, that's because you did not measurably strengthen your tibialis, which is directly under your patella. So, of course, there's outliers. Life is still going to be hard, but there's always a reason for these like major problems. Like life is not supposed to be a major problem. We weren't just designed to have major problems across like these epidemic type problems. So wherever there's something like that, I know from experience now, there is an answer. It's measurable. It's super simple. So there you go. I don't even know how I got into that, but we were talking about the sprinting and the running, and that was kind of my point, is that for this ass to grass split squat, that allowed me to rebalance up. And now I can do double-legged squats like a mofo, like crazy stuff with my knees because they're so balanced to each other. My hip flexor length is balanced, so I can sprint and jump and things are even and it doesn't hurt after, you know what I mean? So compared to normal, I'm now not only like going from the fragile guy, but now going to like pretty freakishly bulletproof compared to the norm. But if you took these dudes in the tribe that you were with, walking, sprinting, squatting, so if you measured those abilities relative to their age, they would probably be considered better than your average American if you tested deep squatting, sprint. You see what I mean? And they didn't even do anything. Like, they just tried to live. So I would say right now, statistically, if all you did was just try to live, you'd probably have better health than the average person with hundreds of thousands of dollars of resources applied to their health with all these complexities.
And very complex PT regimens and very complex surgeries, which may or may not be useful long term. And and you can do all of this with like very simple movements, a lot of it in your garage with, maybe a few $100s maximum worth of equipment. Since we're talking about running so much, I do want to talk about this because it's near and dear to my heart. I want to get your perspective on it too. When I first started running, I was in college, and I was a heel striker with my running motor pattern. And it was all I knew because I'd worn shoes my whole life, and I got the thickest shoes you could get. They were these Asics, and I went to the running store. I got this very complex analysis of my running gait, and they were like, "Oh, you overpronate. You need these really thick running shoes." I forget I think they were the Asics Beast. They were called like the Beast because they had the biggest, thickest heel you could possibly get, and basically a freaking like piece of steel preventing me from pronating. And the reason I was pronating was because I was heel striking so much. And because my diet was garbage in college, and I was eating tons of oats, which are super high in phytic acid, I got stress fractures. So I was loving running. For me, it was suddenly freeing. And I wasn't even running that much. I was maybe running 35 miles a week, and I did my fourth 5K. And I remember walking around the grocery store afterwards, kind of euphoric from the run. I wasn't running that fast. It was maybe at 18 or 19-minute 5K at that point, which was nothing ridiculous at all. And I was like, whoa, my femur really hurts. But I stress fractured my femur in college because of a combination of poor diet and bad running form. Later on in my running life, I figured out that if I cut out those foods with phytic acid as I transitioned to a Paleolithic diet, I was much more resilient in terms of bone health, probably also because I was getting more high-quality animal protein at the time. And then I also realized, oh, wait a minute. If you look at the way that indigenous people run when they're barefoot, they're more of a forefoot strike. And then I know Daniel Lieberman, I think at Harvard, has done studies on this. And, I was friends with a lot of the people that were featured in that book, Born to Run. I knew that whole crew of people, and I ran with them a bunch. It was interesting sort of history.
I read that.
Chris McDougall was describing. Yeah. So like Jen and Billy in that book were like that was my running tribe in Oregon.
Wow.
At the time. But I eventually realized forefoot striking makes so much more sense. That's like the sprinting, because people don't sprint on their heels. We sprint on our forefeet. So I don't understand why, I don't know, maybe you agree with this or disagree, but I'd be curious to get your perspective on running form. To me, and I've seen you working out in zero drop shoes, so I'm pretty sure that you're hip to this, but what do you think about the heel striking motor pattern for running? And do you think it's incorrect and something that we should be avoiding? Or is it a misadaptation of a walking motor pattern?
Closer you get to the truth, the simpler it gets. So I would study the crap out of how people naturally run. You know what I mean? Now, we're in a concrete jungle now. You know what I mean? And so we're on concrete, and we do need some degree of support. And that was taken to such extremes. My basketball shoes were like from like something an astronaut would wear. I had the insole and another insole. I mean, it's like, and so much padding. And now for me in basketball, I'm playing on a wood surface with bajillions of decelerations. You know what I mean? So decelerating, that probably would go through the heel on a completely flat surface. Out in nature, you're mostly going to be on mud, grass, dirt, sand. You would naturally be more forefoot. So I think it's a similar thing where I wear Zero shoes, that company with an X, Zero shoes, and I'm not affiliated with them. I'm friends with the CEO of the company, and I first wore Feyway shoes for a year, which are like basically martial arts shoes. So a Feyway is going to be, it's like $20, and it's way more minimal than a regular like basketball shoe that I had gotten, Nike Air Max. Like you're used to just like walking around, like even when you're not playing the sport, you're walking around in these giant padded things with this massive heel, right? So I went to the Feyway, which is like better. I did that for a year, but then it was like, and now for my training style too, it's like, man, I want even less. Like I was gravitating to just wanting to do my workouts barefoot, but it doesn't exactly work because your foot can slide around or whatever. You know what I mean? So then I started wearing Zero shoes, and now that feels perfect. You can see it's like, I mean, it has enough like just so that you can grip the ground and stuff, but it's not trying to add anything. And it has that wider toe box. So that was kind of an aha moment too, where it's like most of our shoes are bottling up our foot. What foot do you think is going to have better like support? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think is going to be better balance? Like this, like put your hand close together, put your hand far apart. Which hand is going to have more balance? Obviously, the wider hand. But again, I think whether what you're talking about, diet, or my program of training people with their body weight from the ground up, or Steven's session at Zero Shoes, making this more natural shoe, I really think it's the same concept of thing where if we take it at a level we can handle and get to what's more natural, then we actually can live much more free lives. But it doesn't mean that like you can just make a switch one day and like everything's magical. You know what I mean? But stats are not looking good as we continue to avoid our problems and as we continue to put one Band-Aid after another Band-Aid after. So I think we also get this idea in American culture where life is supposed to be this magical wonderland on clouds. You know what I mean? Where you don't experience anything difficult. Everyone gets the 8th place trophy is just as good as the 1st place trophy. But that's all, you know, BS. So modern society makes it very tough not to assume that the answer is always going to be more sheltering. You know what I mean? That's my program is just unsheltering people and helping them rebuild these abilities that we often lose. That statistically mean our lives go to shit. You know what I mean? And it's just one Band-Aid after another Band-Aid, ultimately ending in full-on, you know, knee replacements that then you hope that goes well. You know what I mean? And the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, already knee replacements are considered an epidemic. They're expecting rates to skyrocket over the next 10 years. Well, for me, my mission in life is pretty simple. Not to make those rates skyrocket. It's not fun having surgery and then being told, well, now you can no longer go below 90 degrees. Oh, so what you mean is I can't squat down and play with my grandkids. I can't kneel down and play with my kid. I can't squat down to pick them up off the ground. Is that what you're saying? That's what we're being told. You know, so it's just how you want to go about living life. But even then, if someone tells me, you know, I'm going to have a knee replacement, blah, 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 I don't tell them not to. People still need freedom is still more important than my opinion or your opinion or anyone else's opinion. We're going to try to put out what's true. What's true is probably simple. It's probably closer to nature. But on either side, people still need to be able to have their freedom, you know, to choose. And that's where I feel bad because in your case, I see that certain things you're talking about, like you're not even being given your freedom. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to talk about anything like that until much later in the podcast. You know, it puts us in a tough spot.
Yeah, and I tweeted something yesterday. I really believe that similar to the way knee operations are considered commonplace, autoimmune illness is considered commonplace within our society. And I have autoimmune illness with eczema. My mom has autoimmune thyroid disease. My sister has autoimmune illness. My dad. I think there's an epidemic of autoimmune disease in humans. And I think that the first line treatment for that should be dietary modification, but mainstream medicine doesn't realize that. I think people should have the freedom to choose a disease-modifying agent for their autoimmune disease if they want. If they want to take infliximab, if they want to take Humira, if they want to take medications from pharmaceuticals that affect the immune system for their autoimmune disease, they should have the freedom. Yeah. But just like you, I also want to offer them a few things that I've stumbled upon that I find curious and intriguing in terms of the way that certain foods affect the immune system. And I think that should be something that physicians talk about first line, much like I believe after talking to you and learning about your stuff, and in general, I think our philosophies align here completely, that the first line treatment for knee pain should not be knee surgery. It should be thinking about your diet and thinking about how you're moving and thinking about how you're weak. And I mean, you talk about this in your videos, the fact that weakness in your knee has to do with muscles and ligaments and tendons, and nobody ever talks about how you strengthen muscles in addition to ligaments and tendons. And then you said something in one of your videos which I thought was really cool, and I believe sort of fundamentally, which is humans can probably regrow cartilaginous tissue. Maybe we could talk about that for a moment, because that's not something that's accepted widely within our culture. Most people will say, "Oh, you have a meniscus tear, or you've broken some cartilage, you've broken a tendon or a ligament. Like you need to have that surgically repaired." But what has your experience been here? I mean, if humans can regrow cartilage, that would be meniscus or other structures that are the sort of connecting structures in the joints. That's a game changer.
Yeah, we already know from a pretty recent study where they took one group, gave them a meniscus surgery, took the other group, cut them open, didn't give them the meniscus surgery. They had the same recovery rates, So that was one that's pretty scary because that's the number one most common knee surgery in younger people, and then for older people, it's the knee replacement that's most common. That's scary stuff to find out. Most people are not aware that tendons and ligaments first off, are stronger than muscles. So like if you're avoiding, quote unquote, stressing the tendons and ligaments, you could be letting them wither away. And that is actually like, so to make it really simple for people, a muscle is the most flexible, but is actually the weakest. A ligament is the least flexible, but is the strongest. And then a tendon is in the middle. A tendon's less flexible than a muscle, more flexible than a ligament. It's stronger than a muscle, not quite as strong as a ligament. So you have this three-part approach, and you can train and strengthen and grow your tendons and ligaments the same way a muscle grows and develops. The difference is we see the muscle, it can grow bigger, that we see it, whereas our tendons and ligaments, those can develop and grow too. So even before we get to the issue of cartilage, because I've had so many people say, my doctor says I have an quote unquote irreversible cartilage condition. Irreversible. And then they write in saying, this program reversed it. There's, I guess they could now do studies and figure that out. Personally, I'm soured on the entire subject because I don't want to be a motherfucker who gets cut open and then doesn't have a surgery or does, thinking, it's just, it's not my game. I didn't even make my system based on a single study whatsoever. I've only in hindsight, because of so many people, do you have a peer-reviewed paper on that? Do you have a peer-reviewed paper? So I started looking and digging and funny enough, finding out, actually, yeah, all this peer-reviewed crap points to exactly what I've been saying. But it's just a weird road to go down. So like, if you were going to test if cartilage can regrow, like, do we even need to? Or, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not my game. So I don't want to try to pretend to be an expert on something I'm not. I'm not an expert on anything medical regarding the knee. I'm an expert on ability of the knees. That's what I'm an expert on, is on helping people gain abilities without pain. That's what I'm truly an expert on. Anything else I'm not really an expert on. I'm not an expert on diet. I'm not an expert on autoimmune. You know what I mean? People ask me about COVID. I'm not an expert on COVID, nor am I an expert on the vaccine. I'm not the right person to try to pretend to guess on that. But in being an expert on improving people's abilities, it points to some of these same things that I'm seeing corollaries in other fields. That sure, there will be outliers. People should have access to get surgeries. However, so much naturally can be done. And it's actually, as we start shedding all the complexities and getting down to what's most natural, that we actually see like the best overall results, and we can't we can't impose something on everyone just for like that, the outlier group that really does need the surgery or whatever. You know what I mean? That's kind of where it's like it's kind of frustrating for me when I see like, entire population, something imposed for like a very small, percent. But it's tough. Everyone on each side of the coin is in a tough situation. I used to believe in no knees over toes. When I would train my friends, I would tell them, whoa, I've had knee surgeries. I know. Don't let your knees over your toe. Like, what? Wait a second. So I've been, you know what I mean? I've been on both sides of any coin. And I have a fundamental belief that there are just fucking awesome people out there everywhere. And we have to relentlessly try to get along. But that will often mean a compromise where we have to respect each other's freedoms on a matter. You know what I mean? So I have to hold myself to not put anything disrespectful to specific people saying don't let your knees over your toes. There's a guy who believes in don't go all the way down, right? And I sent him a tib bar, and he's having great results with his athletes. And if me and him can get along, I'm considered, the complete opposite. So my complete opposite in the industry, that people are like, wait, don't you hate that guy? Like, no, he's a fucking great guy. He's trying to help his clients the best he can. You know what I mean? Having a difference of opinion doesn't mean that either one of us should be disrespecting each other or trying to restrict each other's, what each other can do in any way. It's still our freedom. So these are the kind of corollaries that I'm seeing across, pretty much any area of great problems, is that each side should have their freedoms. Each side should work to have, some kind of a compromise of respecting one another. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, for either side.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree. I think that there are some issues that are more charged than others.
For sure.
Hopefully the current administration won't take a strong position on how to rehab knees.
I'm lucky that
yours.
Yeah, I'm lucky that Google says your knees can go over. I'm lucky that I'm with knees.
Right. Who knows? Eventually, I'm sure somebody will say, "Oh, this guy Ben, he's showing misinformation. It could hurt your knees." but it's great for now that you can talk about it, and hopefully it'll never get there. But I mean, absolutely. I mean, the things that you're pointing at, we don't have to be subtle about, is the fact that, within medicine right now, you can't express opinions that are contrary to the norm. And I talk about this on every podcast, so we don't need to belabor it. My audience certainly understands this, but I do think that there are parallels, and I think that what you're experiencing is very similar to what I've experienced. And it certainly seems like with what you're talking about, I'm sure you get the same sort of pushback that I've gotten. People name call, at least me, and I try to take the high road. I don't think I've always been super successful, but do you get a lot of pushback online?
No, I'm lucky. You have so much tougher of a job, and I'll explain exactly why. Because I can go show things with my knees, whereas you can't just show the long-term effect of diet. It's not so you're in so much tougher of a spot. I have no idea how I would handle it. You know what I mean? That's what I meant when I said I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I'm just in a much easier, simpler zone that I can just go show things each day. You know what I mean? I don't have to push back. I don't get pushed back. I think I did at first when I first was this knees over toes guy, but it was just too self-evident. Whereas some of these other things, people are so much further along on, just having media idea. Let me put it this way. The media right now is not trying to convince people not to let their knees over toes. You see what I mean? So I don't have that pushback that some of these other areas that the media is right now going hardest on. I'm really in a secondary category. I'm not, you know what I mean? So knees and exercise, it's much more of a subcategory than some of these bigger issues you're dealing with. So that's why I have no idea what I would do. My only advice for you would be at the end of each day, still fucking try to have love for everybody. You know what I mean? That's going to be the greatest challenge for you, is still to have love for everybody in spite of, whatever they're believing. And it's probably just the people who are profiting ridiculously that it maybe takes a few people. That's what's kind of so shitty, is if you go to a public pool and a kid is standing in and pissing into the pool, no one's going to jump in, even though it's an entire pool and there could be 100 people there at the community pool. It takes one person to piss in it for everyone to get out, So there are probably some people, and in their own way, they've probably justified it to themselves, and they probably really believe in what they're doing. And, at a certain point, how much money they're profiting off of something, probably to them, it's well, this is paying for my kids and this and this and this and this. And maybe they've grown into a mindset where they believe that money is sort of truth. You know what I mean? And that the more money they make, the more right they are. So, when you follow some of those big money trails, I think in any industry, things can get, pretty scary, but I don't think it means that the majority of people, you know what I mean? That's where you have to just still try to have love for everyone in spite. But as I said, I have no idea how I'd be able to tackle the issues that you're tackling because of that media pushback, but just definitely don't fucking stop, but don't give up. But I don't know. It's a tough spot.
It is unfortunate, and I'll just say this before we move on. I don't understand why. I think you hinted at it. I think people come to the space with a lot of different narratives, and some people have more hurt, and this is going to sound cheesy. They have more hurt, They have more pain that they're trying to, sort of realize into the world, and they approach the space with more vitriol. And so people come back at each other in the nutrition space with more vitriol, or the medical space with more vitriol. And I was talking to a friend yesterday. To me, it seems like a lot of people today have made their beliefs their identity. And because I was asking her, why does food become so religious? And why do these food beliefs become so religious? And I thought, well, I think it's actually because food beliefs have become identity for a lot of people. And other beliefs have become identity, political beliefs. And the best I could muster in response to that was, maybe we should work on making our values a bigger part of our identity rather than our beliefs, because beliefs can change. And if we frame our beliefs, if we frame our identity on beliefs, then it's very difficult to change our identity, or to be a real human that's capable of growth. To use a Jordan Peterson analogy, it's like a lobster with a carapace that doesn't grow, right? If you form the carapace, if you form the shell of the lobster with beliefs rather than values, then your identity is kind of fixed. And it just seems to me like that. There are people out there in the space who have just decided that their identity is going to be negativity and name calling and vitriol, toward anything that they don't believe in, and it makes it an unfortunate space. But
you nailed.
I'm still gonna do what I do.
You completely nailed it though. For any of us on any side, if the belief, you know what I mean, becomes senior to how we treat other people, that's where I think we've gone wrong. And I say this actually every podcast I ever do now, because my biggest realization in my entire career has nothing to do with knees. It's that simple fact that my beliefs or your beliefs or anyone's beliefs is still secondary to getting along with one another, treating each other with respect, giving each other our freedoms. You know what I mean? So these are all, the belief has to be, secondary to how we treat other people. But if I had to come to that realization, you know what I mean? That means a lot of other people haven't had that realization yet. So I at least try, maybe one person, you know what I mean, will have that realization and start acting on it. So I remember as a kid, like watching like a political election, and it was like, well, such and such had 75 lies in that speech and the other one only had 42 lies or whatever. As a kid, it was like so confusing. Like these are the greatest representations of us. And then imagine as a kid seeing an advertisement paid for by one guy to attack another guy. Like money, like taxpayer money is like going to pay for one person to hate on another. If these are our greatest representations, what the hell can you expect of everybody else? You know what I mean? So you nailed it on the head, that the people who are supposed to be the greatest shining examples, if it's okay and actually just common and becomes the norm to attack one another over differing beliefs, there you go. I mean, there you go. So if I was like in an election, I would say, I'm Ben, that's Joe. Don't vote for me because you don't like him. Look at the issues. I'm not even going to talk about that guy. I'm only going to talk about what I'm going to try to do. He can blast me all he wants. I'm not going to put your hard-earned money to bash someone else or waste a second of my time talking negatively about him. If you want to vote for me because you want me to help you and I'm going to work as hard as I can to help you. That would be my political campaign. And funny enough, I actually think at some point someone will win with that, honestly.
You gonna run for office, bro? I would vote for you. I think we've got our next. I think we've got a budding political career here. I got the strongest knees in the Senate, right here.
Not gonna happen. But you see what I'm saying is that how can we expect better of everyone else beneath our top representatives if that's the norm? The norm is the norm, and most people will follow the norm. Not everyone will follow the norm. You know what I mean? I don't follow the norm. I don't follow the norm that it's okay. I follow higher moral principles than the presidents for the last, decades. So, and there's a lot of other people out there who have higher moral principles than the presidents for the last decades and what has become the norm. But we can't expect the majority and the norm to be, to have different ethical standards than what's supposed to be our top representatives.
I agree with you. Now, when we started planning this podcast a month and a half ago, you surprised me. You were like, I'm going to eat an animal-based diet, or I'm going to eat like you're recommending until we do our podcast. And I was like, that's amazing. You don't have to do that, but that's a bonus.
I've only eaten off that list.
So
all my friends know I've never stayed lean while eating this much calories. So like I used to kind of think that I do have to limit my calories to, you know what I mean? Like to be lean, it's going to be natural to be having cravings. So I've never been lean without having cravings. So that means I'm getting all the nutrition I need, I'm getting the calories I need, and I'm eating only from that list that you make, so available. So it's pretty damn cool, and that I can literally eat as much as I want if it's from that list and don't have cravings and be fucking as shredded, if not more shredded, than I've ever been. So I think that's a big difference maker. If you're following a diet and it is working for you, but you're having cravings each day, I feel like it doesn't mean you can't stick with it, but it's just a higher risk that you won't stick with it. You know what I mean? So to me, a diet has to be something that you're not having cravings. You know what I mean? So that's pretty simply like my big win. I've never been lean in my entire life, meaning having muscle and low body fat, so what's good for my, for what I consider for myself. I've never been lean and not had cravings at the same time. So I think I'm actually eating more calories. And I had a buddy named Marcus Philly who I got to hang out with who has he's one of the most shredded guys you've ever seen. And he also doesn't limit his calories. So between what talking with him and then eating only from that list from you, like all the light bulbs just like kind of went off. So now it's like, okay, this lifetime diet, check. Like it's so easy now. Like how cool is that, not to have cravings and to be lean? So there you go.
I love it, man. That's so cool. So this is what Ben is referring to, in case you guys don't know, is an animal-based diet. There's lists at Heart and Soil Supplements on Instagram or my Instagram where there's an infographic you guys can get if you email us, radicalhealth@heartandsoil.co. I think we'll release this. We will release this podcast in the month of August. This month we are doing an animal-based 30, which is an animal-based program where we're getting people to eat in this way. But the list Ben's referring to is basically an animal-based diet. So just in case people aren't aware, I think most of my audience is aware of this. I'm just curious, what did you eat for breakfast? What are you going to eat for lunch? And what did you eat for dinner? Let's give people an idea.
Totally.
It's going to sound similar to things I've talked about. Yeah.
Totally. So right off the bat, when it comes to meat, there's no limit. You know what I mean? There's no limit. And I just kind of follow my cravings on it. And something like wild-caught salmon, grass-fed beef, those are going to be pretty primary sources for me. But then even the list of different fruits and stuff, it's like it can really vary on the day. So what if I had a day where I'm shooting videos and it happens to be 90 plus degrees and I'm not quite getting the right shot and my phone's dying because it's so hot and now it takes me 3-4 hours out in the heat to get certain videos? I'm not going to follow a set diet, you know what I mean? And I might have a bunch more of certain things on that list. So I definitely eat, a lot of those grass-fed and wild-caught, proteins off that list. And then I don't have restrictions, and it's a pretty good balance, avocado, banana, cucumber, those would be pretty simple ones right there. I think for me the interesting one for me is I used to eat big salads to help prevent the craving, so it just help stop the cravings. What I noted though is here's how to put it, certain fruits from that list, from your list, if you just take the fruit, it tastes good. But if I just take a piece of lettuce, it doesn't taste good. And then I noticed that what I was really craving was all the dressing. And when I added up the calories, oh wow, I'm literally having 400 or 500 calories of dressing. And I would put some avocado with it. So what I'm noticing now that's different is I'll just like an avocado with just some salt on it is going to be very satisfying, calories, taste delicious. You know what I mean? So I'm still going through this process, and it totally varies each day exactly what and how much I'm eating. The list makes it simple. Then the fact of not restricting myself makes it simple. And then what I do is I look and kind of learn different calories about foods, not to count them in the day, but just to kind of be aware, okay, this day I had a ton more energy expenditure. Let me pound more of this or that. For example, grass-fed ribeye steaks are going to be extremely high in calories compared to different other ones. You know what I mean? So that's just an example of how I'm still kind of going through this process and learning. But it is without question. I don't have cravings because I eat from the list until I'm full. And not only have I not gotten fatter, but my wife says I've literally she says I've never been in better shape. Camera lighting, this, that, videos, and the other, there's a million things. You could even just kind of starve down for a couple days or this, that. The cool thing is I'm not having to do anything for any videos or pictures. Never having to restrict how much I'm eating or when I'm eating. So talk about the closer you get to the truth, the simpler it gets. I don't have a plan. I don't know what I'm eating when. I don't have to count calories. I don't have to restrict portion size or any of these other things. And I'm, having better training than ever, not getting cravings. And I've said it 10 times, but for me, that is the biggest thing. The biggest thing is that if I'm not having cravings, then I can keep eating that way. You know what I mean? Even if someone were just to take, let's say you took you as an expert and a few other people as experts, and you each got to just put your favorite foods into a list. You know what I mean? And if people could only eat from that list, they'd still be healthy as crap compared to what most people are eating. Because most people are struggling with the cravings and then eating the things they know they're not supposed to. And they have the Coke Zero thinking that it's 0 calories. And even if it is, it's not giving them nutrition now. And what they should have eaten, they were salivating for that 300 calorie avocado with salt, but instead they went for the 0 calorie drink, only to eat a donut later when they're like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, we're all struggling from the fuck it moments. I would say the majority of people are struggling from those, you know, from those screw it moments, and then eating the stuff that we all agree that we shouldn't eat, you know. Then within that, the fact that your list has meats and different fruits and vegetables, like, I feel like it's very hard to go wrong with that list. You know what I mean? I'm not even saying, like, part of me sometimes thinks, well, crap, maybe all meat would be better for such and such conditions. Maybe for a short period of time, all whatever, you know, fruits and vegetables. But, like, that kind of, you know, fortunately with that list, I don't really have to think about any of that shit. I just eat from the list. I just eat what I'm craving from that list. You know what I mean? So it's the best I've ever eaten. No cravings. And it's particularly saving my ass because I started this year with the mission of no cheat meals the entire year. So like no like processed bread, sugar, like no cheat meals the whole year. Why? Because I was having some success, and I was like, the time you're having some success, it's the time to level the fuck up, not let off the gas. So I'm having some success. So this entire year, I have not watched a TV show. I have not watched the news. I have not watched a movie. I have not even watched a sports game. So I've done no entertainment of any kind. That leaves only time for knowledge-based, you know, technology, for working, creating, writing, podcasting, training, whatever. And I haven't had a cheat meal the whole year, which I would use as things like, let me turn off my mind and like eat this ice cream. You know what I mean? So I have nothing against entertainment. I have nothing against cheat meals if the person can control those things. But I just made the mission not to do either. Particularly good timing if you're a new dad, because your kid isn't having cheat meals. You're not going to miss a hot dog at the ballpark that was nostalgic with your 3-month-old. You know what I mean? So he's 10 months old. We're in August now. So it's like a perfect year. Like, I'm not missing watching the NBA Finals with him. You know what I mean? I'm not missing. So I'm not even judging that I wouldn't enjoy those nostalgic moments later or whatever. But I was like, holy shit, I'm cracking my foot in the door of this, like, you know, of my goals. This year I could go on the gas full steam. So yeah, it's August now. I haven't had a cheat meal, and I haven't done any form of entertainment. But I was definitely having cravings. You know what I mean? And so now switching to this it's probably been a good like 6 weeks of using this list, and no craving. So it's like, oh man, it's like a huge sigh of relief that it's like it's going to be so ridiculously easy to eat good now. So there you go. I've talked on and on about it, but you can see why that's a big issue for me is not having the cravings. Huge issue. I'd rather leave. Again, I'm not a diet expert, so I'm not telling someone like what they should eat, but I'm eating from that list, and it's absolutely made it simple for me, and is working for me, and is allowing me to, you know, reach my goals, which for my kind of athleticism, you want to jump as high as you can or run as fast as possible. It means you're trying to get stronger. You're trying to have lean muscle tissue with as little fat as possible.
Are you getting some organs in your diet?
I haven't gone.
In addition to
I haven't gone to any of the things that aren't like just like pretty easily available, because I tend to like the only supplement I take is my buddy makes a pre-workout drink that doesn't have like anything, like any artificial colors and flavors and stuff. And for the last 5 years, if I haven't had enough sleep, so I don't do it all the time, but like if I know I need to be like awake and I have to train and shoot a video after this, so like I had 1 scoop. But like that's it. I don't take any vitamins. For the last year prior, I even didn't take any of the pre-workout just to see what that was like. And I keep my coffee intake extremely low. So that's where it kind of like this is kind of like having like an 8-ounce cup of coffee, and I keep the coffee intake super duper low. So I'm not saying I wouldn't go to that, but part of it is like for my knees, I don't want to really be getting like any potential unfair advantages. So like that's why like every day people are like, oh, I'll send you my joint supplement for free. It's like, no, I literally cannot take anything for my joints that could. So I'm still eating the things that anyone listening to this could go to the grocery store or could even order in, you know, or whatever, and like actually still eat from that list, if that makes sense. I don't know where it'll take me in the future, but so it's more just grass-fed meats and wild-caught fish, and so I haven't even gone to those lengths yet. Which, by all the other theories I follow in life, it would make sense to, you know. But I'm also trying, like I try to live kind of for that average person who wouldn't, you know. Anyway, so I can tell anyone it's a pretty good transition, even eating the things that you already know from that list.
Right. Did we send you some organs from Heart and Soil? We need to get you some of those. I mean, it's just like organs in capsules. So it's like, it's just food, just easier to get.
I'll think about it. I have to think whether that would break my code or not of having any unfair advantages for my clients. I'll definitely.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if it weren't, you don't have to take our supplements, but you could eat like liver or heart or, things people could get in the grocery store, but a lot of people won't eat the fresh organs. So anyway, yeah, it would be cool. I'd love to see how you feel on those if it jives with your ethos.
Right now, like, it's pretty damn good. So, but I've eaten so close to this for a long time, but was always just a few tweaks away that I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like this is how I eat anyways, just with a few tweaks that I was missing, like on not understanding that that I don't have to limit certain things. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about that limiting or try to I was kind of always on the lookout for a good 0-calorie drink or these kind of things, which then was just realizing, holy shit, that's actually holding back, what I could be, doing, if that makes sense. So I don't have fixed ideas, as you mentioned earlier, how some people get fixed, ideas. That's my greatest strength, is I'm honest with myself in the moment every day. So right now, this I know that would be super easy for people to follow, and then I'll definitely let you know if I get to that point where I want to try it. It does seem to make sense that the capsules would be more that someone would just could take the capsules and not have to cook up. I can tell you if I'm going to try it, it would be the capsules, because that's something that cost efficiency, time efficiency. For me, it's more the cooking time and going to the grocery store to get it and learning, how do I cook that thing or whatever. So I can tell you that much, that if I do try it, I'll just be buying it myself. I don't get anything. I'm not an influencer either, because I don't accept free shit. So I'm trying to maintain my status as not an influencer and not a YouTuber by just not. The moment I start taking money from those things, it can change.
Absolutely. But that's why we did it. That's why I built it. Just that my mom can get it. Anybody can get it in a capsule and can take the organs that are hard for people to get. And there's unique nutrients in them. If you look at the hunter-gatherer tribes, they always eat the whole animal from nose to tail. And so there's when you dig into the science, there's interesting nutrients that are found primarily in the organs that I think allow humans to really be pretty fantastic, that I want people to have access to who don't want to cook it and deal with liver and all this other stuff. So
that does,
but you bring up
completely make sense. So I'm sure I'll be, looking into it.
And then I just want to highlight another thing you said, which is that I really, and I've talked about this on a few other podcasts in the past, that I think there's a lot of limitations to the calories in, calories out model. And, a lot of people get worried about this has X many calories and this has this many calories, but it's nuanced. But, in my experience and the experience people I work with, when you focus on food quality rather than food quantity, you can eat a lot of food. And you can eat more food than food quantity pundits would tell you can eat. I was looking on Instagram the other day and I saw this bikini competitor's Instagram. And she was saying, right now I weigh 68.2 kilograms. She's preparing for a show, and she's currently eating 1,302 calories a day. And I was like, that's ridiculous. You can starve yourself. You can work out a whole bunch and get a whole bunch of muscle, and then temporarily starve yourself to the point of losing fat and temporarily looking good in front of a camera without any real proven functionality, longevity, elasticity behind that, and no need to prove hormonal health, libido, fertility, etc. So it's just, the whole thing is quite a bad taste for me. I think that it's a misrepresentation and it misleads people, because for so long we've had this idea of the way someone looks as a perfect proxy of overall health and longevity. And yeah, somebody that looks good, that's a great look, but there's a lot of people that look good whose hormones are completely wrecked. They're infertile. Women have no regular hormonal cycles. They couldn't conceive. They're not sleeping well. They're irritable. Not everybody, but the same happens with male bodybuilders too, and male, figure competitors. They are not hormonally healthy. There is a way to do this, but there's also another way, which is if you focus on food quality over food quantity, and you only eat with discipline and intentionality rather than feeling restricted, foods that are very high quality, which I believe are things like meat, organs, well-raised, wild-caught fish, fruit, honey. you can eat a heck of a lot of it. You can basically eat as much as you want in most cases, unless you have a massive hormonal derangement underlying it. And we see this over and over for both men and women. Like, they can eat more calories than they expect to. And if you refer back to the podcast I did with Herman Conser, when you give your body these signals of abundance, when you give your body fruit and honey, but primarily giving your body the nutrients found in meat and organs, it's basically signaling to every cell in your body, we are successful. We are a successful hunter. Now is a good time to be strong, to celebrate, to make babies, because we all want libido, right? We all want fertility for the majority of our life, or part of it, right, when we're in those years. And so that's the signal you're giving your body, and that's what I'm about, like helping people give their body this signal of abundance. Whereas when somebody is in a figure competition, you're giving your body a signal of scarcity. They're basically saying, oh shit, there's only a little bit of food around and it's not the most ideal foods. It's a completely different ideology, and so I'm glad we could kind of highlight that for people.
Yeah, the calories model to me is a secondary thing, meaning like, so for most people, if you're eating the right things, you're just going to be phenomenally healthy, and that would be far better than stressing about the calories. Now, of course, for someone trying to get ready for a show or something, that is like a more extreme goal. So they could go to more complex and extreme measures. But now trying to run that like on entire, and man, if it even got to me, and I'm like usually not, falling for stuff, but even for me thinking that like it was like good to find low calorie foods, like you just found like less survival, you know what I mean, for your body. So I think, with the longevity again, like I'm not eating for a competition, and I have nothing against a bodybuilder following the technologies that they've figured out for how to get ready for shows or this or that. Modern bodybuilding, I remember one time they found the average guy was on like 9 different drugs, So it's already much further down the complexity line for bodybuilding and fitness. But now if that becomes like the norm for everybody else, that's kind of where it gets tricky. The norm for everyone should be like the simplest, most natural thing. And then these complexities, this knowledge of, how to restrict calories to get to like having veins popping out of your abs, that is a more extreme thing that I don't really see correlate with greater longevity. Our old fitness icons and stuff, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, these kind of fitness icons, they were actually often these like amazing longevity cases, and they were able to grow old with like stellar fitness, you know what I mean? Which is very different than who can have the absolute largest amount of muscle mass. So like one of my heroes, Bob Gadja, who actually was the guy back in the 60s who came up with the idea of like loading that tibialis muscle. So that's like how I found out about him. He was very different. He never got rich off this stuff. If he understood business structure, he could have gotten rich off that device. You know what I mean? But the point is that he was just so focused on helping people. He worked out of the YMCA. His mission was getting kids off drugs, off the streets, and into fitness. He retired after winning Mr. Universe because he's now going to the health clubs, and seeing people shooting up steroids. So he's like, that's literally like his whole mission in life was getting people off the streets, off drugs, and pursuing health, So there's just a difference between pursuing health and longevity and pursuing a magazine cover. And that's a specific goal for that person that's going to bring them happiness. But that calories model, I think, is screwing up so many people because it's adding all this complexity, and they're not actually eating the most nutritious foods, and they become scared of the things that fuel their body the best. So I even think that the calories works itself out because I've coached thousands of people. I'm not a diet coach. I don't bring up diet. A lot of them bring up diet. So hundreds and hundreds of people, I've had in-depth discussion with their struggles with diet. And it is almost always eating horrible foods that they know they're not supposed to eat. So overwhelming majority, again, I don't care about one exception to I don't care about the kid peeing in the pool. I care about everyone else having a good time. And so when it comes to diet, the vast majority of people are struggling against calories because they're trying to find low-calorie things. They're unable to find low-calorie things that make them feel they want to feel. So then, once they've lost and they've given up and they felt like they failed, now they're going and eating pints of ice cream and they had a backslide. You know what I mean? But they were literally withholding themselves Now for me, let's say that I get all that nutrition I want on Monday. And now on Tuesday, I wind up doing more exercise. I wind up sleeping like 9 hours straight, whereas I couldn't sleep 9 hours straight when I was having less calories. Do you know how shredded you get when you get like 9 hours straight of sleep? So now I'm literally awake like less, getting better quality sleep with more exercise. The calories will probably even themselves out if you took like a yearly calorie. I'll bet it would still even out between everyone. Oh my God, like I know people so close to me who are struggling to follow diet. I'm going to start on Monday and they're just getting fatter and fatter and fatter and eating more and more, but they're broken because they feel like they don't have the discipline. But they don't lack the discipline. They're trying to find low-calorie foods while being a single mother and feeding 2 kids, you know what I mean? And trying to find a 100-calorie protein bar to quote-unquote solve their problems, only that is their problem because then it's not the 100-calorie protein bar. They say fuck it and they're low on energy and they go to Starbucks and have a 700-calorie drink and a 700-calorie muffin, and now they're like fuck it and they just broke their diet, you know what I mean? But it started with feeling like they had, failed on a diet. So that's where for the real world, for most people, I think your yearly calories will even out. And would you rather have those calories coming from natural things or unnatural things? So anyways, I could rant on the calories thing all day.
Thank you, man. I appreciate those thoughts. It's incredible. And I love that you highlighted sleep and the fact that you eat more calories, you get more nutrients, you're going to sleep better, which gives you more energy, and your metabolism goes up, and your cortisol goes down, and your hormones go up, and you're more libido, and you have more muscle, and you're more fertile for whatever you want. It's just, the whole thing works, and everything goes in the opposite direction when you give your body the signal of scarcity, so it's amazing. Ben, thank you for the work you're doing, brother. I love this. I really appreciate the time. I think people would be so much better off from viewing your content, and here's Onyx, and checking out your stuff. And I hope a lot of people look at your stuff online. Where can people find you and learn more about these things? Because I think that these exercises are incredible, and I love what you're doing, man.
I appreciate that. Just Google Knees Over Toes Guy, because I put out a weekly article. I put out YouTube videos. I put out Instagram. What else do I do? Anyways, if you Google Knees Over Toes Guy, then you can kind of consume it and learn it like at whatever mediums you like to use, So I'm not going to mention, she said TikTok, but that just makes me sad. But I am on TikTok as well. But anyways.
And Instagram, Knees Over Toes Guy.
Exactly. So if you just Google Knees Over Toes Guy, then you can probably find, whatever suits you. And I super appreciate you having me on. I super appreciate what you're putting out for diet. It's absolutely life-changing. And for me, the same way I help people have those fundamental aha moments that just relates to everyone and is simple, that's the same kind of thing that you're giving me and obviously a lot of others on diet, where you have that aha moment and life gets simpler and better quality, So keep crushing it.
Amazing. Man, I hope that
my wife said she loves your diet too. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's so amazing. Yeah. I just hope that I get to jump off a house with you someday, Ben. So let's find a way to cross paths and we'll jump off a house.
Let's check in after another year of me eating like this, and I'll send you the 8 exercises I mentioned in like a book form with pictures, so you can just flow through it, and we'll check in when we've done some more.
Amazing. Yep. That sounds good, brother. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.